Hello guys, it is that Panda again. I'm here again with another video, and today I wanted to go through the opponents for Island Raid, and I will start at G1. I wanted to predict a bit about maybe the results and how I think things will go, how I think they might build, they might start off in general, etc., etc. And G1 is definitely going to be interesting. I think that this one will be a pretty intense fight because although you might see a lot of alliances and think, oh, well, a lot of these alliances are from 10 or are from 16. I will be honest, like these, even ANCB, I feel like this is the strongest alt alliance or alliance that you're gonna find among like those. I don't imagine these guys having much of a presence. The only person who really has an impact, and the thing is, people got to consider, like, there are so many whales in Boone, ANCS, HNB, and when you consider like ANCB, for example, although they are a 4 billion alliance, these players bring no presence to the field. They are literally easy kills. And I mean, besides the fact that they might be able to hold Boone's marches down a bit, I don't see them being able to do much. The only person who's like kind of whale-like in their alliance is Paul, and I don't really see Paul. I don't know if Paul is tier 6, and even if he does, I can't imagine him holding down Boone as a garrison captain all by himself, not always being able to be online. And then there's also the fact that I'm not even sure if he does know what he's doing, and I don't say that to sound like offensive, but he might not be built for war. I mean, I just saw him have 12 million kills, right? He might not be a war player, he might not be coordinated like that, he might not understand a lot of the mechanics that come like with garrison captaining, etc. He might, and I might just be saying that, but just assuming that he's not a big war fighter, it's good to assume that he might not be extremely useful being used against Boone as like kind of garrison captain and just holding some of their presence. And then there's also ANCC, who is weaker, right? Like 1.6 bill, the highest players are what? They're 40 million. They would just get slaughtered in towers. Their field presence would be nothing. I feel the only reason these guys would be used are as foot soldiers to hold Boone down, and even then, you'd literally just be easy kills. And I don't say that to sound rude, right? And there's also SOS. They don't have any whales. Like the highest person is 47 million. Yeah. And now I will talk about the two outlier alliances. I feel like KLGD and SOAP are definitely going to be players here. SOAP is 3.4 bill alliance. I will say, like, although a lot of these players aren't gonna be able to hold field presence, for example, like I will say, of course, like their average might is probably higher than the other alliances, like those alt alliances. But when considering like SOAP in general, of course, these like 60 mil players and whatnot won't be able to hold much of a field presence. The big players here are definitely gonna be their two whales, who are possibly gonna be garrisoning a lot and just needed as captains, while the rest of their players are playing filler. As long as these two are able to do their whale job properly, they should be doing well. And I won't say that as if like they are going to be able to stand against HNB. HNB are just complete powerhouses nevertheless, right? So honestly, the most I feel these guys could do are try to slow them down or just prohibit them from moving. I'm going to assume that SOAP is going to build for this level 7. Honestly, building out and towards, I don't know, because I feel they might get cut off and it might not. I don't know. We'll see, but I'm assuming they might build. I will say KLGD, 4.7 bill alliance. They do have quite a few whales. I think at least maybe 5 tier 6 players. I think I actually heard maybe 6 tier 6. I don't think so though. Might be wrong. Either way, they definitely will be able to hold as garrison captains pretty regularly, as long as these guys are able to kind of just disrupt H and B. I feel these guys are really important. If these two alliances can somehow like just slow H&B's progression down, or just kind of put pressure on them, this will actually save Boone a lot of energy, and kind of Boone can actually just work towards ANCS and try to cut them off. I feel the thing is ANCS isn't like a weak alliance, but comparable to Boone, I'm not sure that these guys would be able to hold. I mean, they definitely have a lot of whales, but I feel like the thing about Boone is for me is always the fact that these guys are pretty balanced on might. Though, like, considering that HNB is now 10 billion, if these guys aren't able to put enough pressure on HNB and they are able to just random reload like their main powerhouses down here, they will be trying to maintain field presence, probably trying to push Boone back as they work their way across the map. The big advantage for Boone is the fact HNB is so far away, and they're going to be sorry guys they're going to be forced to actually build all the way over here to kind of save ANCS. I think the best move for Boone is probably going to be jailing off ANCS into their like helipad area early out, and this will basically force ANCS to hit into their towers if they want to jailbreak. And the thing is about Boone is after they handle ANCS, even if they want to take on H&B, their big issue is they're going to be splitting their forces between defending these towers that are likely going to be cutting off ANCS, as well as just I'm sorry guys, I'm like dying over here, as well as just handling H&B, and that's really going to be an issue. Like that's why I keep saying that it's really going to matter like a lot if these two alliances right here are going to be playing a big role, because Boone is not going to be able to like go on the offensive against like H&B by themselves, right? And against ANCS as well, because they're going to have to defend these towers if they somehow manage to push these guys back into helipad, as well as just go on the offensive and try to take around Rune's control. All in all, this is definitely going to be a tough fight, and I'm very interested to watch it and record some and just do some commentary for it. But you know, we're going to see how that fares. I think it can be anyone's game. I think Boone still is kind of at a disadvantage, even with their two like semi-whale alliances. I can't imagine them having a massive role, and I don't say that to make them sound weak. I'm so sorry guys, I'm like actually dying over here. So G2, when referring to G2, I have pretty mixed thoughts. RPG definitely got a good role. I think the game has just started doing this thing where they're going to be placing like one really big alliance in G2, give them an easy win, and then these other alliances are going to be kind of forced in a bad spot. Though I won't say it's an easy win for RPG. So when talking about RPG, I think we got to really consider, like, although RPG is an 8-bill alliance, I couldn't imagine them standing against like an average whale alliance, right? Even if there was a whale alliance their size. I feel RPG isn't unorganized. Yeah, I've seen a lot of mistakes come out from them that could be improved. And all in all, they aren't the most organized, though they do have a lot of whales, and that is like the definitely like the big plus on their side. But if they have to go through tower fights from multiple sides, I'm not sure that these guys will be able to hold. I don't know if they're good at garrison captains. I've seen them make a lot of mistakes like that where their leadership isn't like changing garrison captains and whatnot. A lot of this fight is definitely going to rely on Fine and DBN possibly sandwiching these guys if they want a chance. The thing is, there's also Orc. And I will say SMHS, from what I've heard, there's going to be an allegiance between these two. And although I really dislike SMHS because they are scumbags, they are traitors, I think the big issue for AC-18 is, you know, SMHS are freaking like really salty. Like I don't think they forget grudges or whatever, and you might actually see them trying to, you know, double team on AC-18. You know, X-War is in a really bad situation. I heard they dropped to under 2 billion might actually for this island, and you know, even though they're 2.2 billion now, they probably upped their might afterwards. I heard they, you know, dropped their might, and the big issue about X-War might just be the fact that I don't know, these guys are like really small, and I mean they do have whales. I think they have coordination. I'm not 100% sure, but from what I've seen in the past, I'm pretty sure they are decently coordinated. I know they have this 86 mil guy. If he has tier 6 tech, that is very bearable if these guys can play fillers on towers while AC-18 possibly takes out Orc or they take out SMHS, but it really depends on the fact that AC-18 can. You know, AC-18 does seem like a good alliance, and I like them. I like them in general because I mean, I might just be biased, you know. I'm definitely biased. And there's, all in all, I think Orc is definitely a powerhouse. I mean, you see a few whales here, so honestly, taking out these guys is no joke. For AC-18, honestly, I'm not really. I'm trying to stay like optimistic, but it's definitely gonna be hard if these guys are getting pushed from all these angles. I think a big factor is gonna be spec, you know, because I don't know if these guys are able to put any pressure and kind of just do a triple team. If these alliances are able to triple team on SMHS and Orc, that is very doable. The issue is I know that Fine and DBN could take out those two alliances, right? But or at least I'm confident because I've seen DBN fight. They are very just wild, and I mean Fine definitely can fight. But I think like there's definitely way more like lack of firepower compared to DBN, even though they are stronger. I'm not sure if they'd go as crazy as they would, right? Like they're just way more willing to lose troops compared to them. I feel like that's definitely a mindset a lot of people got to get into, and like just not caring about losing troops or whatnot. But either way, I think RPG is going to be in a rough spot if these two like team up on them. But that also means that these, SMHS and Orc are going to be in a spot where they just, they can kind of reap the winner's rewards. If one of these alliances are able to take out RPG or something, if DBN/Fine are somehow like burnt out, exhausted, and then like these two alliances somehow manage to beat them up, beat up these other alliances on the side of the map, they can maybe just take advantage of the chaos, try to take advantage of DBN. I don't know. You never know, and I wouldn't know with that. But honestly, it's hard to predict. I honestly, if I'm being completely honest, I think that RPG will lose in a 2v1 because RPG just lacks really good coordination. The second these guys are able to start getting towers down and locking these guys down towards their first village and cutting them off from the sides, I think that really will screw RPG up. RPG isn't a weak alliance, but they just, I'm not sure. I feel like their biggest thing is going to be field presence with all their tier 6 players. But if it comes to tower fights, I'm seriously not sure how I feel that they would fare. I think it's really going to depend on how good Fine is at tower battling, because that is going to play a big impact on this. These other alliances, I got to be skeptical about because I don't know how the allies are working. I don't know where Spec sits among this alliance over here. But yeah, I wouldn't trust SMHS with my back, and I think that's the biggest issue in that island. I do want to give actually, I'm just trying to predict some stuff about the islands. I actually don't know who I think would win, and if I do say, I will not say because I'm scared. But either way, we're gonna go into the last island now, and I kind of want to. This is my island, so I'm gonna be a little bit ambiguous because I do know that. It's my island, and I don't wanna sound. I don't know. I don't want to sound all weird. I will say, like when referring to Born, this is like one of those outlier alliances that I'm not sure about. I was looking at a lot of their top players, and I was looking at their kills. For example, the Reaper, although he's a strong player, he has 21 million kills over his whole account, period. These kills are just not appealing to me, and he doesn't come off as someone that's willing to really put in some fight. Maybe Dom would. I don't think Hole would. 80 million might. You have 12 million kills. And the thing is, maybe being big and having a smaller amount of kills isn't always the worst, but when you consider the fact that these guys have like pretty decently old accounts and they're at this size, that's just really weird to me. Like people around 30 million kills or even 20 mil do make sense, but when you're at 141 million might, you'd expect them to have more firepower to actually just get more kills all in all, right? Like, I don't know, dude. 82 million with 3 million kills. I just honestly don't see much coming out from Born when you consider G3. I can only imagine them going for their like level 6 and just sitting there. Unless they have like a really good allegiance that is going to carry them. And I don't say this to sound really disrespectful, but I don't see Born as some fighter alliance that is going to be able to put up many numbers. I just don't see that. And I will say right now, Prime and Doom are naturally more so leaning towards an alliance because we are. No, I've been president of in Doom for a while. I was a leader in Doom for a while, so I'm close to a lot of these players. So in general, it's just a given that I am more likely to align with these guys, and the position of the map kind of makes me like more inclined to push towards Born. And this is actually perfect in our situation since Born does not come off as much of a fighter alliance. NAS is one of the, is now hot. That was hot at the time, but 9AS is one of those outlier alliances where they do have 3 tier 6 players, and this is the biggest thing that I actually had worried about for Doom. I don't have my account in Doom right now, so they don't actually have tier 6 players. They do have close to tier 6 tech on rivers and stuff, but in general, if they are forced to take tower fights, if 9AS is like, for example, setting rallies on 3 different towers and able to keep all 3 of those rallies full, that will definitely be a bad issue for Doom. I know that 9AS does have decent coordination. I've seen pretty good coordination come out from their alliance, so I do think that these guys are definitely a big outlier, especially when you consider they have those three whales. Their one big issue might actually be field presence. Although they do have these three like bigger players, Lusak has tier six. He doesn't. I don't think he's gonna really able to keep field presence because of the lack of troops. But in general, you see a lot of their players are on the lower spectrum, or not lower. I think like a lot of these are actually pretty decent sized, though not to the case where they could maintain field control against like Doom or something. I think that field control will be forced onto like their two top tier six guys, trying to force off high tier five players from Doom. If they're kind of forced to fight, and I'm not saying that these guys are gonna fight. It's possible that 9AS is gonna actually try to conflict with Boone, because maybe they don't actually want to come this way, because I mean we have Doom here, we have Prime here, and it's very risky actually to push in this direction when you consider that we are really close in general, right? So I actually think that 9AS might go towards Boone just out of conflict of interest, and it just doesn't make sense to actually have a conflict with us. Boone on their board has Nut as SVS family, so server versus server, region versus region. I will talk about Boone for a bit. I think that Baby Boone is in a particular situation. I'm not really sure how I feel about them. I think these guys are very coordinated. They are like definitely a smart group, and the issue might be that I don't actually know. They have a lot of 985 mil, 82 mil, 85 mil players right here. This is probably tier 6, I'm guessing. So tier 6 tech, Vin would actually be in kind of a bad spot, because I checked them and I thought they had their really big guy. And I mean, they do have Nolan, but I thought they would have their really massive T6 whale, but they only have Nolan here. I'm hoping that Nolan actually has tier 6, and if that's the case, that's the only way they're going to be able to combat Boone. But the thing is, Boone does have multiple players who are possibly tier 6 tech, so spreading themselves out into multiple towers is going to be a rough one. So honestly, for Vin, their best chance is to go for Nut, whereas Nut's only player, like their key player, will be Lusak, and or sorry, no, I said Lusak. Lucille. I don't know how. I know he's still tier 5. I think he's still tier 5 tech, and I know that Fox has a vendetta against Nut and possibly Boone. And I was looking at Fox. These guys definitely have quite a few whales, and they're definitely gonna be putting up some presence. As long as as long as they like don't create issues over here, it would be perfectly fine for them to actually just totally cripple Nut. Because I mean, although I fought them last island, fighting against one whale it was already hard enough, right? Fighting against multiple whales is not doable, especially if they get sandwiched by Vin and Fox. Boone, I don't know what Boone's gonna be able to do, because if Boone is building out, if they're not able to align with 9AS, they're actually gonna be in a bad situation, because Vin, I doubt they're gonna be allying with Vin, and although Vin might not target them, 9AS is definitely going to be putting some massive pressure over here, as long as 9AS doesn't come this direction. All in all, I tried to give a little summary about how I think everything is going to be playing out. And I mean, I know I just blabbed a bit, but I think that this is definitely going to be interesting in all three of these islands. If anybody does want to see any more islands like G4 down, let me know. I have less insight on any regions, or sorry, any brackets under G3, so I will be giving more of a suspicion like on how things will go. I will say, like, for us, the big thing might be, like, for example, I've been reached out by a lot of alliances. So if I allied with Born, for example, I don't see Born bringing me much value, and I never like allying 3 alliances on one side of the map, because you kind of give up the chance to have an outpost, right? So first off, I do want to say allying with Bourne isn't in our best interest. They don't seem like fighters, and I don't see them providing much to the field. And I will say, there are some people who are like, probably fighters here, but I don't see them as massive fighters, compared to these other alliances who are willing to go like ham. There's also, maybe Fox or something. If I was to align myself with, let's say, Nut and Boone, I'm more likely to actually get myself smackle-dackle-dackled by Fox. And I mean, I'm not sure how things would turn out against Fox, but I don't see it being the most favorable, and I see it becoming more of a dogfight if we were forced to conflict with them. And if we did align ourselves with like Boone, for example, I see NAS actually becoming an issue, because then Doom's gonna be forced to handle these guys while Prime is forced to handle Fox. And then unless we have none on our side, and even if we do have none, I'm not super confident in them being like super huge fighters who could handle like Fox or even Vin, when you consider like Vin being on par with them. I'd give them an on par vibe, right? Like these two would definitely battle it out pretty evenly, I like to think. But yeah, that was basically it. I just wanted to give my thoughts about the brackets, how the building might go, whatever it might be, blah blah blah. I do think that this video might have been enjoyable for some people. I think I just got caught up in explaining stuff, so I hope that this video wasn't a big blab fest and some people enjoyed it. And you guys have an amazing day or night though, and I do appreciate you guys for watching and just listening to me as always. Peace out.